Palawan has been voted the #1 island in the world by Travel and Leisure 4 years running. It is an amazing place. The beautiful beaches, the clear waters, the coconut trees, the magnificent mountains. And tourists come from all over the world to experience this. And yet there's a reality that most of them never see. And that is the remote jungle villages in the mountains. Individuals who live there are isolated from the rest of society there, and many of their customs are still carried on, including child marriage and child brides. And so as we visited these villages, we were able to do so through a helicopter that was built in 1959. It's in incredible running condition, but we were able to perch on the sides of mountains and visit jungle schools that have been built by PAMAS.
So initially PAMAS started with mostly medical services being offered through aviation to the indigenous peoples in the mountains surrounding southern Palawan. But then it's grown as more aircraft has been donated. It's allowed us to reach out to a lot of the remote islands surrounding Palawan. And then 2017, we became an official air ambulance for this region. And that even spread our services further. In 2011, we had a group of indigenous people kind of lower in the mountains, close to Brooks Point. They actually approached us and asked if we could assist them with a literacy school. And this was the beginnings of education side of PAMAS.
And so these schools were built. In fact, we are partnering with 6 schools now at this point, together with PAMAS. And Child Impact initially became involved with these projects through Operation Child Rescue. This is a program, a project of Child Impact that focuses on children who are at risk, who are being exploited. Well, what is the issue that these children face in these jungle villages? It is child brides. Girls at a very young age are married off. In fact, we know of a girl at one of the schools, near where one of the schools is located, that is recently married, and she's just 12 years old. We met another young lady who gave birth to a baby. In fact, folk didn't even know she was pregnant until right before she was due, and there was an emergency because she was not feeling well. They flew her out of the mountains, and she had a baby and almost died.
So because of the limited access to education, it just continues to force these cycles. You know, the early marriage, cutting off any ability for the young men and the young women to continue on. But just to give you an example of how bad the problem is with the indigenous people, the early marriages, you know, if a family's expecting a baby, and I'll ask them, what do you want? Do you want a boy or do you want a girl? They will always say a girl. And I used to always wonder why. Why do they all want girls? But then I realized girls are money. When it comes to this kind of situation, these early marriages, the girls are money.
Child marriage is something that the Philippine government is concerned about. Last year, they passed legislation stating that child brides being married under the age of 18 is illegal, and yet this still takes place in these mountainous, remote regions. And so we believe that through Operation Child Rescue, we can intervene and provide a different path for these girls. When they get married, when they have a baby, typically education just stops at that point. Any hopes that they had, any dreams that they had of a future career, a future different path than just sustenance living is gone. And so when education is an option for them, it gives them a different path from the cultural and economic pressures that they face to marry at a young age.
We will see these promising young people excelling academically, excelling spiritually, and then the next thing we know, they're gone. This pressure comes to them from their culture, their parents. Oftentimes, I hate to say it, it's almost like the children are being sold. They're more interested in the dowry than the future of the child or the child's well-being. And so time and time again, our teachers will call us up and be in tears. We lost another one, and no, they didn't die, but again, the family put the pressure on. It's almost a forced marriage. So we see these are children having children. Then we see them later on. They're not smiling. They have babies in their arms. They still maybe, come to church, but there's like a sparkle gone out of their eyes. And it's too hard. It's too much. That happens all the time. We've even had the suggestion that maybe we'll buy the girls. I don't want to say that. We've even come up with the idea that maybe we'll buy them so they can finish their school. Yeah, don't put that.
Some of the studies indicate that the challenge with a teen mother, a teen bride, is that there's a high risk for them when they have a baby. In fact, they can actually die in childbirth at a much higher rate than someone who marries into their 20s. And so in fact, we have a child that we supported through Child Impact, whose mother, teen mom, died during childbirth. And because of superstitious beliefs, the father placed the baby beside the corpse of the mother and was going to leave him for dead. Well, this was discovered, and a teacher from one of our schools that we support decided to adopt baby James. And perhaps you've heard his story. He's a beautiful young man. He's a toddler James now, and I was able to meet him and hold him and bring him some gifts and play with him, and just to see the beauty of him living out his life with such joy. And then his adopted mom, Marlon, is just so full of joy. You can just see the love that she showers on baby James. He's so loved, and yet at one point he was abandoned. Why? Because of the tragedy of child marriage. Not only is child marriage a risk to the life of the mother, but also there's a higher mortality rate among the children that are birthed by child brides and child mothers. And so there's a risk both to the mom and to the children. And so if this can be prevented, and the best path to prevent this is through education, then we can provide different options and opportunities for young women to grow up and have another path that they can choose for life. Marlon's story is just remarkable. She herself was orphaned and was adopted and raised in the home of missionary parents. And so she's wanted to pass it on. She's wanted to pay it forward. And so not only did she adopt baby James, but she's a teacher, and she constructed and is leading in her own jungle school. And we're able to visit this school, and it is just in a remarkable location. The views are incredible, but it's simple, it's clean, and you see children there who have, many of them, tragic stories in terms of the lives that they lived through this very young age. And yet, because there's a school there, because Marlon said, you know what? I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to give back. My life was changed. I want to change the life of others. Because she's made that decision, they have an opportunity today. And to see the joy in their faces, their eagerness to learn, was just absolutely exciting to experience.
So for me, education is of vital importance in the remote areas for the Katatubo. To me, education means freedom, and not just freedom, but also empowerment. The native Palawano are very often ostracized, treated poorly, misjudged, and to a certain extent, they're helpless. And education brings them the ability to not only not being taken advantage of, but it also helps them to have a brighter future. And most importantly, that they have an opportunity to learn about Christ and have hope for eternal salvation. Of course, we're here to provide them a second chance at life physically, often through medevacs. But in reality, why we're here is much deeper than that. It's to give them the opportunity to have eternal life. And so education brings that. It's not just your ABCs and math, which they do learn, but most importantly, it also is a Christ-centered education which helps them in every way, physically, mentally, spiritually. So they can be healthier, they can be happier, and so they can have a greater future.
The Palawan are beautiful people, but we recognize because of sin, every culture is broken. And we recognize that there's a universal moral norm. Of course, we know it's biblical. It's not okay for a child to get married, and it's not okay for a child to give birth to a child. Not only is it dangerous, but it's also not right. And so my hope, my prayer is that through these schools, that there'll be a different generation that will rise up, that will recognize that this is not a requirement. This is not the way that things have to be done, that there is a better way and that there is a way out.
There's nothing more rewarding than seeing the hope come into these young people's lives. The hope of what God wants to do in their lives, the hope of what they might be able to achieve in their lives with God's help. But then when you see that hope leave them by the early marriage, by the abuse really that comes in these situations, that's where the pain comes in. Many times our teachers are calling us and they are in tears. So it's still a problem. We are seeing improvements though. And I can't put my finger on exactly what's bringing it, but somehow we are watching our students realizing that they actually have a choice. There is a lot of pressure. It comes from the family, it comes from the culture, but I just heard today actually on the mountain, a young woman said they didn't know they had a choice. And now they're learning to exercise that choice. So we're seeing some of our students delaying the marriages when the parents are pushing, when the young man is pushing. They're saying, no, I want to finish my school. So we're getting a gleam of hope that God can bring an answer to this problem.
Greetings, friends. As you've viewed this video, I believe that your heart has been broken as mine has. Can you imagine what it's like, the pressure that comes, the economic, the cultural pressure for a girl to be married as young as 12 years old? That just isn't right. And so I want to encourage you to help us support these projects through Operation Child Rescue. You can donate by visiting childimpact.org and selecting Operation Child Rescue, or you can call our office at 423-910-0667. Thank you for making a difference in helping these girls break the cycle that can bring them such harm and giving them hope for a brighter future.